I'm slamming him tonight.
This week on the Dude-Cast, we introduce a new Dude-Cast drinking game. We'll talk about worldwide connectivity and social detachment, all the dark shit going on in the world, and spoiler alert, if you're a Trump fan, you're probably not going to like this one.
That's fucking interesting, man. That's fucking interesting.
So just sit back, take her easy, dudes. I'm Van Daniels, chillin' with Bo Reed, and this is the Dude-Cast. Hey, Bo, how's it going, dude?
Just enjoying the nice weather we're having here on my day off.
Yeah.
Where are you at?
I am in Boston this week. So I've taken trek from St. Louis to Pittsburgh last week, and then went back home for the weekend in St. Augustine, and then now I'm in Boston. So it's been, a globe-trotting adventure the past couple of weeks. So
I'm jealous.
Yeah, it's been kind of nuts. So, but not too bad. Everything's, I was able to get a lot done the past couple of weeks, so that's a good thing. I posted up the first episode of the Dude-Cast last week, I believe Thursday, and then got a wild hair over the weekend and decided that I was going to post. I put up track one of the Dude's Lost meditation tapes, and
I saw those.
Yeah, so that was bowling sounds over binaural beats. So it's actually really relaxing to listen to. My special lady friend, my wife, told me the other day that she was listening to it to go to sleep the other night, and it worked for her. So that's a good thing.
It is products that work.
Yeah, but don't ask me what prompted me to go ahead and put those up. But I decided to go ahead, and I was just messing with some mixing over the weekend, doing some audio production stuff, and thought, oh hell, that'd be cool. So I went ahead and just worked it out, worked up the audio for it, and then ended up going ahead and I posted it like Sunday night, I think. So it was up there rather quick.
Sometimes inspiration just strikes.
Yeah, gotta hit while the hammer's hot, man.
Yeah, man, just gotta roll with it.
So a lot of ins, a lot of outs, a lot of what have yous. Just it was been a pretty busy couple of weeks, but all in all, productive. Which for a dude is maybe not so dude. I don't know. It's hard to say.
I think being productive is dude. I mean, he goes out and he at least tries to get the stuff done that he needs to get done. It doesn't really work out that well for him, but he makes an effort.
Yeah. I, just kind of sat back and was thinking about, all this stuff that I need to get done. And I'm like, man, the dude would never work himself into a frenzy like this. He'd be chilling, relaxing, having a Caucasian in the hand and not going crazy and running circles like I have been the past couple of weeks. So I'm trying to be much more dude and relaxed, but it's taken a little time to get there. You got to feed the monkey, man. So it's a job. Got to do it. Got to go out there. At least I enjoy it. So
about half the battle right there is finding work you enjoy.
Yeah. So what's your week been like?
Most of my weeks are the same. I'm pretty dude in that aspect, is where I don't do a whole lot. I go to work and I come home. My work doesn't require any travel and nothing too crazy happens in my life. So it makes it pretty non-stressful. I could say that.
Well, being non-stressed is very dude. So I look for those days soon.
Yep. It's a good thing. I could say that. I come home and just kind of chill, the wife and the kiddo, hang out.
Well, that's, sometimes just being able to enjoy those small little things and chill with the kids is the best thing you can do.
Yes, I agree. Although it would be nice to travel every now and then. I think you see more of the country in a week than I've seen it my whole life.
Well, that comes with pluses and minuses. I don't really see a whole lot of the country a lot of the time. A lot of the times I see my customer in the hotel, and that's about it. But I do try to get out and enjoy a little bit every now and then, go and have a few oat sodas and, meet up with some dudes that, that are around the country and get a different perspective on things every now and then. So do try to do that every now and then, but trying to get out sometimes can be just as stressful as staying in, I guess.
Speaking of oat sodas, I'm about 10 drinks into our new game here.
Shut up. Yeah, so last week I was listening back to the podcast that while I was doing the cut and getting it up on iTunes, well, actually published up to our site so that it could get out on iTunes, and didn't really notice too much of it during the editing, but I was more focused on just making sure that things flowed and that we had things together. And then, of course, as things go after it was published, I'm listening back and realizing that evil little social anxiety tick just decides to come out and bite me. So I decided I should make a drinking game out of it for people who are listening to the podcast. So the idea was that every time I say, which tends to be my social tick, evidently, that you have to take a sip. And I would advise against taking a whole shot, because if you listen to the last podcast, that probably slipped out maybe 100 times or more. So if you're going to play along, I would just take a sip. I wouldn't do a whole shot.
Yes. Was a user discretion is advised.
Yeah. So it's...
Whatever the responsible thing to say here is, don't kill yourselves playing the game.
No, and only do it if you're going to be staying at home. You can definitely play it with a Caucasian in hand, but only play if you're not going to be driving anywhere. So I imagine by the end of it, you'll be pretty toasted, especially if you start by listening to last week's episode. So yeah, the new podcast game is Drink to Van's Social Anxiety Tick.
It's a fun game, I can tell you. I'm playing right now. I'm having a blast doing it.
Well, I'm doing my best to cut that, I think, there it goes again. Did you take your sip?
I'm on it.
Okay. So, it's just one of those things, man. I just, when I'm in a situation, and you had to drink again, when I'm in a situation where I'm talking to somebody new, or in a situation where I feel a little uncomfortable, and definitely talking on the podcast is a little uncomfortable at first, until we kind of get worked in and get rolling. But it's just one of those things, man, and it just kind of it led me to think about what we should talk about this week. And I think what I kind of came up with was this idea of, we're living in the most simultaneously connected and disconnected culture in history, right? Technologically, we're connected, but we are definitely socially disconnected in a lot of ways, right? Now Facebook and our phone and those things have kind of consumed our social life and social aspect to the point that we feel like we can't do anything without that phone in our hand. You got to have that instant connectivity to everybody, but at the same time, we're shutting everything around us off, and we're shutting down real social interaction with other people. So, you go to dinner with people now, and it's hard to talk and get people all in the same conversation because you've got people on their phones, constantly texting and things like that. And that, I think, has gone to where now our kids are, they have more difficulty with social interactions in general because these other social, technology-based social interactions have kind of taken over their lives.
They've almost completely taken over. You don't even have to talk to the pizza guy anymore if you don't want to. Like,
yeah, no, and it's kind of sad, when, and we're probably, God damn, now I'm going to be really conscious about this, and we're already about 10 to 15 drinks in, so, but it's the truth, though. We've replaced real social interaction and real talking with this technology and texting and things like that, and it's turned off our social filters at the same time. So to me, it's really sad, and we've kind of lost those things. And I hate to sound like the guy that in the good old days when we're back, that kind of thing. But it's really true. We've turned off those social filters as we've picked up these, the technology-based social interaction, to the point where people don't really think about what they say. You get on Facebook and things like that, and you've got all the internet trolls out there that, in a heartbeat, they're willing to cut somebody down with no concept of how the person at the other end is going to receive that. It's crazy, man. The technology takeover. There's good and bad with it, but I just see there's more bad when it comes to how people socialize and interact.
I think it's a lack of consequences. You can say whatever you want online, and there's no real repercussions to the things that you say, other than other angry online people responding. But you can tune that out if you want to. It's almost like road rage in a way, to where you see people get way more worked up in the car over things that would never bother them when they're not in the car, because you can say and yell and scream all the things you want to without worry of consequences. Nobody's going to kick your ass through the internet. They just say they will.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I think it slips out for some people into their regular interactions in life, right? So, I mean, more and more, I'm seeing people act like those little trolls on the internet in real life and real social interaction. Just look at Trump.
Oh, that's... Yeah.
Trump is basically, the angry comments from the troll, in real life. It's crazy, but I was in an airport a couple of weeks ago, and there was this woman in line, and so my flight was late getting in, and got to the gate late, and I ended up having to go to customer service to get rerouted on a different flight. So when I went, I was in line with this this woman was extremely rude, and I was amazed. It was really internet troll social culture in real life amplified. And this woman was standing in line on the phone. There's a big long line, so plenty of people in front of us, and she's talking loud enough so the entire line can hear her conversation with the person that she's on the phone with, and blasting the airlines for her missing her flight, and they had better put her ass on another plane and get her where she needed to go. And she's just, the whole time she's in line, going through this routine of insulting the people working behind the desk, and telling how she's all pissed off and how they did her wrong. And come to find out, by listening to this woman's own conversation, she arrived at the gate late. So she evidently got there 3 minutes before the plane was supposed to take off. And everybody pretty much knows that the doors get closed 10 minutes before the flight leaves, So she should have been there. And so for something that was her own fault, she was in line complaining at a level that everyone around her could hear, just cuss her, every other word was fuck this, fuck that, fuck these people. And it was to the point where the women behind the counter at the airline, I was feeling horrible for them. About 20 minutes into this diatribe that this woman is yelling out in the line, the girls behind the counter, you could tell, as she got closer to the counter, were getting more and more upset, more and more agitated, and the one girl was actually almost in tears by the time the woman was just, getting really close to the counter. So finally, unfortunately, my Walter came out. I couldn't take it anymore. I remained dude for as long as I possibly could. And then I finally just said, look, none of this is their fault. You need to just lay off these girls at the counter. You need to realize that this was your fault to begin with. You don't interact with people this way, and you don't treat people this way. So you just need to get off your phone and stop yelling. And I swear to God, probably 3 or 4 people around me applauded.
Well, it's this sense of entitlement that people have now. It's crazy. And it's like we were saying before, that people just say and do whatever they want. And the internet sort of breeds that culture because, like I was saying, there's no consequences on the internet. And since there's no one to tell you what you're doing is wrong, you just carry that with you out into the world and think that's how people are supposed to talk to each other. And I think it's almost a little scary that more and more all the newer, younger generations are just going to grow up with that as their only example of social interaction. It's just going to be the nonsense that flies at you from the internet. And we're doomed.
I don't think we're entirely doomed. I think that it can get corrected, and I think eventually it will. The good spot in all this is that, with my kids and some of their friends and things, I'm actually seeing them, to the point where they're kind of realizing this detachment that they have. Now, don't get me wrong, they still are on their phones constantly, and they're still, doing the same, texting while we're eating and that kind of stuff sometimes. But it's gotten to the point where I make them put their phones down whenever we go out and do a dinner. But I am seeing a lot more, at least hearing a lot of conversations now, to where they're looking for other outlets. They're looking for social type of interaction, and getting out and forming groups to go and do things outside and explore. And they're kind of realizing that the technology itself has kind of driven them indoors and antisocial. And so that's at least a positive thing to look at. So hopefully that's a sign that it'll change. But right now it's the craziest times. Like I said, we're simultaneously connected and disconnected at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've never been more connected than we are right now. Every person on Earth can talk to every other person on Earth. It just kind of turns out when you take away the filters and let everybody talk to each other, nobody really has anything nice to say. It's almost, yeah.
That goes back to what you were saying last week, though. The more dudes we can get in the world, the better off it'll be.
Absolutely. I agree. And it's like you were saying with the kids, yeah, they need to go outside and have that social interaction. You need to meet people and do things, and, there's a big world out there. You shouldn't have to see it through your phone. Or, take your phone with you if that's what it takes to get you out and actually doing real stuff. Take pictures outside. They look better outside anyways.
Yeah, much better. Oh, I still would rather that they didn't bring their damn phones when we go to dinner.
Yes. Wouldn't we all?
Yeah, it makes me feel a little undude when we're sitting there and you're talking and their head's buried in their phone and you're trying to get their attention for 15 to 20 minutes before they finally actually talk to you. But yeah.
I think it's the casual conversation is dying. People don't want to make small talk anymore when they have a distraction away from it.
Yeah, but what is that distraction? And I'm guilty of it too, because I'll sit there and I'll check Facebook status and all that crap. And
we're all guilty
nothing.
Of it.
You look at that and you think, Jesus Christ, what the hell is it that I'm really interested on here? Because, I mean, you can only look at so many memes of cats and dogs and... That's the social commentary is a cat or a dog in a meme saying some ridiculous, goofy bullshit. And that seems to be what piques our interest for some reason. So we get things like Trump.
Well, we're all addicted to it. It's just some of us can admit that we are, and some people don't recognize the problem. But at the end of the day, everybody's guilty of pulling their phone out and checking Facebook or whatever. It's just what we do now. It's just a new part of our lives. Gotta check the old Facebook.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to do my best to be less hooked into it and to me be more dude and looking at the world rather than looking at the phone.
Well, that's what the world really needs. Is more people looking away from the screens. But at the same time, I mean, I can admit it is nice to never really have to wonder about anything. Like, oh, what was the name of the bad guy in that movie? And you have all the information in your pocket at all times.
Yeah, those are good things. I mean, technology hasn't brought all evil incarnate. Yeah, there are good things that are the result of that. Having information at your fingertips is definitely a plus. And you do get to experience a lot more of the world when it comes to things like new music and even art and books and reading and things like that through Facebook. I think I've been introduced to more books on Facebook, really good reads than probably any other medium in a long time, because I'll see my friends will post something about a book they read or something, and I'll pick up a book that I wouldn't have normally. So, and then having the other portions too, like you'll get introduced to new music too. I think things have changed so drastically for the way music is marketed and put out there now that a lot of these smaller bands, at least, we don't have any big entertainment group type bands anymore. There's not the Led Zeppelins of the world or the Who or, the bands that were mega stars, with the exception of, maybe some rappers and things, but that's all the music industry pushing. But I think some smaller bands get a lot bigger audience and a lot bigger presence out there than ever could have been possible before as a result of the technology. So there's definitely some good in the technology that's out there today. Hell, I work in technology, so it better be good.
Well, absolutely. Without it, we couldn't be doing what we're doing right now.
Exactly. But I think there's been a lot of social anxiety that's kind of been brought with it, and social problems that have been brought with it as well. So
just the quest for likes.
Yeah,
that's all it is.
Yeah. So there's a lot of good and bad in that. Just again, it's finding balance, I guess. You just got to find that balance that works.
There'll always be a downside to everything. It's like I said, trying to figure out a way to live with both, or make people be able to do both, have all the technology, but still be able to talk to each other like human beings. Although that might be like a geographic thing, because they say Iowa nice, and I'm inclined to believe that's a real thing, because people seem to comment on the fact that Iowa is a nice place, and for the most part, if you have a social interaction with somebody outside, it'll usually be pretty decent. It's kind of a weird thing for people that aren't used to it. Like, people will hold the door open for you, and everybody says hi and waves and all that, like, shit you see on TV where everyone, it's kind of a joke, but then you get here and it's really not. People are just polite. And
yeah, I think that's true. I mean, I mean, what I've found is that people in general are usually pretty nice. And in some places, people are more outgoing with, and in other places, they might be a bit more reserved, So I don't necessarily think that people are a whole lot nicer in one given area. I mean, there are certain parts of the country that I probably would say, yeah, there's probably a lot more assholes than there are dudes. But as far as the way people interact, I think it's a little different from place to place. I think people are more reserved about, interaction in places that have maybe higher crime rates or where there's a lot more people. And, you get to areas that have, lower crime rates and things. People are a little bit more willing to be open and converse with people. But in terms of just general interactions with people, what I find is typically once you've overcome that first initial interaction with somebody, that I think people overall are generally pretty nice. You do get plenty of the Walters out there, but I think for the most part, most people are pretty nice.
I think it has to do with the size of an area. Like, if you're in a smaller area, people usually tend to be a little bit nicer. But I think that's because you really have to be. If you're an asshole in a small town, everybody knows you're an asshole. If you're an asshole walking down the street in New York, the only person that knows you're an asshole is the person you are an asshole to.
It's kind of true. Thinking about it, it's kind of true in the same sense that the internet, right? There's a sense of anonymity in a larger town and in a larger city, whereas in a smaller town, you don't have that same level of anonymity. And so, being rude or nasty in an interaction, will come back to you a lot quicker than if you're in New York City where there's millions of people, and what are the chances you're going to run into any of them again?
Yes, it's easier to be a jerk when there's no consequences to being a jerk, essentially.
Yeah, it's kind of the same premise when you think about it. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. So, but usually when you talk to somebody one-on-one, for the most part, people are pretty friendly all over the country.
Oh yeah, well, one-on-one, it's like a whole different thing. You could take the worst internet troll in the world, and if you talk to him one-on-one, he would probably be a decent person. But
yeah, they get to that point where they have that anonymity, though, and then all of a sudden, all the guns come out, and then the Walter spews.
You would almost, I don't know, maybe it does some good in a way to people have that outlet where they can say and do all the horrible things that they want to do on the internet, and then be decent people out in the world.
I'm not going to be in complete agreement there. I think doing wrong to somebody is doing wrong to somebody, whether there's anonymity behind it or not.
Maybe just wishful thinking, like the road rage, keeps some people sane. They can vent it all out in the car.
You got to find a different outlet, though. You got to find an outlet that doesn't impact other people. There's too many incidences where things like kids committing suicide because somebody was trolling them hard on the internet and their Facebook or something like that. And, there has to be an understanding of the consequence of your actions. And so, if you're being a dude, you're concerned about other people just as you are your own personal feelings and safety and health, and you're concerned about theirs as well.
You'd almost think it's something that people are just supposed to know, though. Like, hey, don't say or do these horrible, shitty things to these other people. Like, you would think that just something that should come naturally. It's just crazy to me that people can be so horrible just for the simple fact that nobody's telling them not to, or, they're not going to get in any real trouble for it, so what does it matter? Kind of an idea. Like, whatever happened to just being decent for the sake of being decent? Why do we need consequences in order to do the right thing?
Yeah, I definitely agree there. Are you drunk yet? Because it must be at least 50 times already that I've said. Yeah,
no,
it's been less. I have cut back a bit, so we'll mark that up as a positive.
I did just finish my beer, though.
All right. Well, now you got an excuse to break open another one, so that's a good thing.
Oh, were we kidding? I didn't need an excuse.
Hopefully, it's at least a good beer.
Yeah. What is this stuff here? Tried a sampler pack. Oscar Blues Brewery, Dale's Pale Ale.
Oscar Blues. Yeah, they make some decent stuff. They're pretty good. I'm not a big fan of the pales, but to me they all taste like grapefruit. But I have hit a couple that I like. There was one that I ran into. I think last week I ran into one that was made by it was the Dude's Brewery, actually. That it was a pretty good IPA and pretty smooth, not quite the usual heavy grapefruity taste. And then my other favorite one that I can drink IPA is Dogfish Head 120-minute IPA. That's a good IPA. But it's also got a lot of alcohol in it, so it's easy to drink.
Yeah, there's a lot of good IPAs that have a lot of alcohol. You can get pretty high up there. The alcohol.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the Belgian strong ales myself, so most of those are in the 13% or higher range. So
it's a good percentage to be in.
And then you can go crazy with things like the Bourbon County Stouts, where you can get, I think it was last year they put out the vanilla rye that was like 18.3%.
That's getting up there.
Yeah, there's another really good one too that I had that was like 19%, and that was it was a tequila barrel ale. It was Agave Maria.
Yeah.
It was an awesome beer though. But hopefully you don't get through too many beers tonight, or maybe you want to, and then in that case, maybe you can get through several, but hopefully I can cut down on the tick.
I'm just going to wait till after this before I get to the real heavy. I want to still be able to make my words if I need be.
Okay, so let's go ahead and talk some philosophy of the Big Lebowski.
Far out.
So I wanted to talk about in the Big Lebowski a little bit, just about kind of some of the things in the movie that throw him off balance. And there's really a couple of things that I noticed that are really the fundamental things that throw him off in the movie. And when I sit back and think about it, looking at kind of when things start to go bad and start to go wrong for the dude in the movie, it's really tied to him getting thrown off balance by either greed or fear. So
True.
when you look at it, because originally his motivations were injustice, right? So he was motivated by justice, wanting to make someone accountable for the rug who he felt should have been responsible for it. Walter kind of convinces him that the Big Lebowski should own up to it because it was his wife that owed the money. So even at first, I don't think the dude's really thrown off balance in the first interaction with the Big Lebowski, because he's there more out of justice. When things start to go wrong for him is at the point where he's now motivated by greed rather than motivated by the justice, right? The Big Lebowski calls him back to his house, and from that point forward is really where things kind of start going downhill. It's when the dude said, when he offers him the $20,000, and the dude's thinking that's easy money. I can do this thing and I can have all this money now. And that's the point that you really see him get thrown off balance. And to me, that's kind of really when he starts being overcome by greed.
Well, there's no such thing as easy money. And it does just go from bad to worse, really, there. Especially when Walter decides that they're going to keep the whole $1 million. Although the dude never really agrees to that.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. I don't ever remember the dude actually saying that we should keep the whole $1 million. That was all Walter, saying that. I think dude pretty much throughout the whole thing was really only interested in, getting the money that was originally agreed upon. I don't think he actually was looking to score the rest of the money.
No, he just didn't fight it hard enough, apparently. But he was never going to get paid regardless. He just didn't know that at the time. So
yeah, so things start there when he gets offered the $20,000 by the Big Lebowski, and then they kind of get worse when he's offered the $100,000, and so it gets the more money that gets involved, and the kind of less logic he's using around should he or shouldn't he get involved, right? So originally he shouldn't have just he should have just not got involved, but the greed kind of threw him off balance and got him there. And then later on, after all the money was out there, then all of a sudden his motivation at that point became fear, because at that point he had gotten threatened by the nihilists. They're going to cut off his Johnson.
We cut off your Johnson!
So now he's concerned about his Johnson. So now he's motivated by fear. And so while he's motivated by fear, he's making the same bad decisions as he was while he was motivated by greed.
Absolutely. And he should have just, it's like he said, he should have never got involved to begin with, because the whole situation in itself seemed out of the ordinary for the dude. He stepped outside of his comfort zone, and it came back to bite him. And especially when, the money goes missing, they're looking to him, and, the entire weight of it's on his shoulders. But then that comes back to being Dune itself, because his attitude afterwards is just, well, fuck it,
Yeah, but
life goes on,
isn't it kind of funny that when Walter's plan goes all fucked up, that he's the first one to say, "Oh, fuck it, dude."
Fuck it, dude. Let's go bold.
His grand scheme didn't work out, and so now he wants to become dude and just say fuck it, Whereas the dude is, now he's invested. He's invested because he's worried about, this being real, and Bunny, her life being in danger at this point. So now he can't get out. He's invested from the perspective that there's a person's life at stake.
And ultimately it comes down on him, since he was the one that agreed to help get her back.
Yeah. But it's just interesting, because I think that there's a message, in that, it's a really simple message in the movie, and something that really kind of plays out to, a bigger picture is that whenever people want to throw you off of or take you out of balance, really the motivations that they use are either greed or fear. So, like, and I'm sorry to people who endorse and follow Trump, but really, when you listen to his speeches, the things that he's really trying to use for motivation are really those two things, right?
Well, fear's a powerful motivator.
Right. So the fears about, other religions that they don't understand, the fears about other people that they don't understand, telling people that all immigrants are criminals and outlaws and all this stuff, and playing into the fears that they already have because it's a culture that they don't understand. And then, the same thing really with Muslims. And then on top of that, the other motivation is greed. And, so his claims of he's going to make the country great again. He's going to give everybody great jobs and work all these deals to make us all kinds of money. So he's playing towards, the greed as well. So, and it's not just him, but I mean, because the media does it too. The media plays into people's fears, to get people watching their news channel, right? So so the stories that you hear about are always, the fear-mongering stories about, the murders and things like that happen in the country rather than anything really good going on, right? So it just...
Well, that's why Trump is so powerful right now, is because he's a TV show host. He knows how to get ratings. He knows what the people want to hear, and unfortunately, you're right. It's nothing but the horror stories and the greed and what you can do for them and what's horrible that's happening to other people is essentially what it
Well, the
boils
thing
down
that cracks
to.
me up is you see people use these two things so frequently, and it is really to get people off balance and out of their element. There's a again. Get people out of their element and do things that they normally wouldn't. How many times do you see on Facebook or something like that where people will post something about, money or whatever? If you click this link, you're going to get money, and or some lottery winner is going to give everybody $10,000. And what those are generally is usually somebody trying to exploit information. And so when you click through the links and that, you are giving your information away effectively. It allows the app to view your profile and get your information and all that stuff. But they use those tactics to get people to do things that normally anybody who had any sense wouldn't do. You don't click links that you don't know. You don't do things like that. And it's interesting how people use fear tactics or greed to get people to do things that they normally wouldn't. And I think for the most part, that's what throws people off their balance the most, is those two things, fear and greed. And it's just interesting how the movie kind of brings those things out.
Well, people will throw their whole lives away for greed. If you offer someone money, they'll do all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, you see people all the time getting completely out of characteristics. Somebody who started out with a good premise and started out with a good idea and maybe, wanted to help other people. And so they start a foundation or something like that. And, in the early stages of that, they are actually helping people out. And then you find out later on that, as it got bigger and bigger and more money was coming in, that greed kind of took over. And, now all of a sudden, that person who founded it or whatever and is the chairman or of the foundation is now getting a huge salary and, very little of the money's going where it's supposed to. Either that or they're exploiting people and taking money in. So yeah, if we could just find our balance and realize that, there are those things out there that are going to try to throw you off your balance every now and then. People are going to try to put money in your face, or they're going to try to, fill you with fear. And it's really just figuring out how to maintain balance and how to not be, I guess, motivated to those areas that are going to move you off of your balance and take you out of your groove.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, as long as people keep buying into that stuff will keep happening. I mean, fear is one of the greatest motivators that there is. It allowed an entire country to be taken over by Nazis. It was the same kind of thing. Hitler just played on everybody's fears and all their greed by promising free everything and blame it all on someone else. And that's how you get stuff like that happen.
Yeah, I got to tell you, so I know there's probably people that maybe even listen that are supporters of Trump. And I hate to keep going back to him, but when you listen to that guy talk and you look back at some really, so there was a internet video that I found of, it was basically Hitler in the early days when, even before he came into power, and his speeches were very much like Trump in that it wasn't overt racism and it wasn't overt, bigotry. In the early stages, it would just talk of, we need to keep these people under control. We need to make sure that we're watching these people, and he's talking about the Jewish. And, so early on, it wasn't, we need to round all these people up and put them into prisons. It was just, we need to make sure that we're being vigilant and watching this population. And the message got more and more and more restrictive as it went. And you really kind of hear the same things coming out of the guy's mouth. It's really scary to me.
Well, you can't just take it to 10. I mean, or you can't start at 10. You have to work your way up. You start with the easy stuff that people can accept, and then the more fear that's built, the more people are willing to accept the crazier things that you have to say.
Yeah, and it's scary to me that there's so much fodder to his fire. Recently, it makes me worry that he would actually get to the presidency because of the fear that's being generated right now around the terrorist attacks in Belgium and Turkey and the recent attacks, Congress, at the Capitol. So, I mean, it's really kind of scary to think that guy is getting more fuel to his fire.
I think it boils down to people just want something different. They're tired of the established politics and the way that it's always been, which it makes sense when you look at the two front runners. Well, he's not really a front runner, but he has a lot more support than you would think he has. Bernie Sanders, he's an against the grain kind of politician himself because he is an independent socialist that just came out of nowhere and has garnered all this support. And as the same way Trump is just some crazy reality TV show host that came out of nowhere and picked up all this support. And I think ultimately what it boils down to is people are just tired of the same stuff every 4 to 8 years. It's the same kind of thing. And that desperation for change is going to push you into the arms of a communist or into the arms of a madman. And that's...
Well, so to call Bernie a communist, I think is a really big stretch. So, and the thing that drives me nuts is that when you're listening to, so you get people on the right side that will use fear tactics, and then you get people on the left side that use fear tactics just as much.
This will not stand, this aggression
it's talking
will
about
not
the other
stand,
side.
man.
So the right likes to come back and call Bernie a socialist, and he's made his own mistakes in calling himself a democratic socialist, which I think was his biggest probably mistake ever. But the reality is, when he's talking about social programs for the elderly, the indigent, and education, right? So that's a far cry from Nazi socialism. That was, the idea was, it was going to redistribute wealth. It was going to, make sure that everybody and every aspect of your life was taken care of by the government. You don't want a government that takes care of your every need, because at that point you have no power. So,
and I think that's what people's big fear is, though, when it comes to Bernie, is, like you said, his biggest mistake was coming out saying he was a democratic socialist, because people hear that socialism word.
And that's just it. It's that word that throws people into that, because of the global view of that word as a result of the Nazis and the Nazi Party, basically. And then so some other socialist areas too, in Russia and whatnot. But the reality is, his version of socialism is so different than that type of socialism, and so the label was what really killed him. But
it was the label, and it was talking about Marx. Saying he takes inspiration from him.
Yeah.
Ultimately, he wrote the Communist Manifesto, Socialist Guidelines, or whatever, but still, should probably leave his name out of it. When hundreds of millions of people have died in his name. So maybe
not a good thing. Not a good idea.
Maybe just don't bring that one up.
Yeah. Well, either that or just call it something else, because it's not really socialism. It's social programs, but it's not socialism. So, but anyway, it's not traditional socialism. So,
small amounts of socialism has its place.
We already have it. We already have
exactly.
social. There's already the Social Security Administration. There's Medicaid, Medicare. Those are social programs. Those are that's partially socialism, but.
Well, it's just like the police force and all that stuff. Pretty much anything that's government ran falls under the guise of socialism.
Yeah, but it's funny because now, the far right likes to swing that axe out every time, he's a socialist, and then, puts up pictures of the, Nazi Party and things like that when they do it. But then flipping back, so the left also pushes back at the right and says how, they're going to take away all your freedoms, or, and they're going to institute religion in our schools and all this stuff. And so they use those tactics, and and there'll be no more abortion and all these other things. Well, when the reality is, in order to get rid of those things or to institute those things, it takes the votes in the Senate, the House, and the White House to actually push that through. So to say that if one gets elected or the other gets elected and all these bad things are going to happen, that's not really reality. More so these days, the president sits in the House as more or less a puppet anyway. So,
well, it's just like that with everything. All the promises they make, Trump's going to build a wall and close everything down. Well,
again, playing to people's fears.
Yeah, not unless Congress approves it. He's not building nothing. So, executive orders only take him so far.
Yeah. It's been a crazy couple of years though when it comes to that kind of stuff. But
politics has just been nuts for quite a while now. Ever since the war kicked off, essentially, it's been nothing but a shit show for all of them.
Yeah. Eventually, they got to get the money out. They got to get the corporations out of the pockets, or get the politicians out of the pockets of the corporations, and then eventually maybe something will change. But until then, there's not. It doesn't seem that there's any real representation out there for us. So.
Well, it's like what I was saying. The money's so tied in that I think that's why people are gravitating towards Trump and towards.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Trump is self-funded. He doesn't need their money. He's a billionaire already. and Sanders just doesn't take their money. So neither one of them are corrupt yet. Well, in their own special ways, but they're not corrupted by the system.
Well, I don't know. I think one's already corrupted by money to begin with, but not, it's his own money rather than somebody else's. Yeah, it's not other people's money.
Nobody's paying him to do anything. He just takes his own salary and acts like a crazy person.
Yeah, exactly. So, but, I just thought, it's interesting. The movie is kind of, gives those underlining stories and talks about how those things throw everybody off balance, and or at least present that in as a key part of the story, is how those things tend to throw people off balance, and it's really kind of a bigger social statement about what goes on overall, between the media and politicians and everything else. They're all using money or fear to really kind of get people to do the things that they want them to do, but should be really uncharacteristic for everyone, But
well,
anyway,
like Duke said, he could have just been standing there with pea stains on his rug.
That's right. Could have just had pea stains on the rug, but no, I had to go out and get in all this mess. So, but that's all good. I think one of the things that I wanted to do, because there has been so much crap, and I think probably the tone of this podcast probably has kind of gone that direction too, where we've been kind of a downer during this podcast. I think it's just there's been so much going on in the world that it's hard to have that bright outlook. And so, I think we should probably take a minute and do a moment of silence for those people that lost their lives and as a result of people being very undued. So if that's cool with you, can we just do like a quick minute of silence here for those people?
Well, absolutely. Like you said, there's been a lot going on these last couple of weeks, and I think it's more than appropriate to pay our respects in whatever way, give them a moment.
So for all those dudes that lost their lives, I'm going to toast back a Caucasian and give you a second here just for silence for you. I have been down, man. This the past couple of weeks has been really draining. I just get so tired hearing about, all this stuff going on out in the world, and you just feel like that you got no power to do anything about it, and it gets you down. And
oh yeah, I absolutely understand, man. Reading the news, it's a bummer. There's always something just absolutely horrible happening out in the world, and it's like you said, you just feel powerless. It's horrible that it's happening, and you just hope it never happens to you. But at the same time, you wish you could do something. But what can you do? People just need to get their shit together. Stop being assholes.
Yeah. You need to stop with the idea that if you don't believe what I believe, I'm going to take you out for it. That's too much, It's
an idea as old as society itself.
We need more dudes in the world. Need more people to just relax, take it easy, and stop being fuckheads to each other.
Well, see, the whole relax and take it easy thing, that's a relatively new concept. Because if you look back throughout history, most of history consists of one group of people being shitty to another group of people. Almost since the beginning of time. If it's not religious wars, it's ethnic wars or some kind of horrible, the Crusades and the Inquisitions and the conquests, and it's always just been one shit show after another.
I don't know, dude. Taoism's over 3,000 years old, so.
Well, there's always been dudes. Don't get me wrong. I'm just talking about dudes have always been the minority of the.
I think you're right. I think that is kind of the case, but we just need to just spread it out there so there's more of a majority out there, so people can be a little bit more chill.
Yes. What will people do without all their anger, though? I think at some level, some people just need to get worked up about stuff. That's the only way I can really see it. Otherwise,
well, that's true. I mean, there's people who are attached to their anger. That's something that I have an ex-wife. She was attached to her anger. She was never happy, and the only thing that really seemed to make her happy was tearing an ass into everybody else around her. So I shouldn't say that thing. Yeah. I know people like that. Yeah, not necessarily my ex-wife, but I know people like that they hold on, and that's really the only thing that they have in their life is their anger.
Yeah, but people need to be able to find that balance, because when you start going too far on the other end, then you end up with like those safe zones, and freedom of speech starts to get taken away because people are so offended by everything to where it's one extreme or the other. It seems like we can't find that happy balance where, hey, maybe this guy doesn't be such an asshole.
Yeah.
Maybe this guy doesn't be such a little bitch about it though, too, and they just meet in the middle and have a beer and be friends. I don't know.
Yeah. I saw this post. Somebody had replied to somebody else's shit. They said, they were complaining about something somebody had posted, and what they posted was really innocuous, and it was, it wasn't even anti-religion. It was just one of those things where somebody could take it, I guess, as blasphemous or something. It was something to do with it was Jesus walking on water, and he slipped on a banana peel or something like that, and it was just a little GIF, right? So somebody had posted something about you shouldn't depict the savior in that manner and all this stuff, and he's not a joke and all that, and then so somebody else posted right after that, and they said, "Yes, I'm Offendosaurus Rex, and I'm offended by everything that you've posted, and this is just absolute outrage." And so it was kind of funny, Offendosaurus Rex. So
that's the point.
There's a new dinosaur out there.
Yeah, and he's out there in full force. I live in a college town, so I know all about Offendosaurus Rex.
Yeah, well,
nothing but. Yeah, just people being upset.
Uptight.
You can't be too uptight.
Gotta
you can't
relax.
be too angry. You gotta, don't be a Brant and don't be a Walter.
Yeah. Well, you don't really want to be a Donnie either, though, because you don't want to get completely rolled over to the point that you end up dying in the end.
Yeah, he was almost too go with the flow.
Well, he wasn't really go with the flow. He was just
there.
Let the flow wash over him. He didn't. He wasn't going anywhere. He was just letting it wash over him. So, you got to at least put the middle ground and sit in the middle of the flow, not just sit under it.
We were talking about guns last time. This is completely off topic. Well, kind of, but. It got me to thinking, if Walter had his gun when the nihilists attacked, would Donnie still be alive?
No, because Donnie freaked out because of the incident. Walter wouldn't have had time to pull his gun before Donnie was already spun up in a tizzy.
But Donnie didn't have a heart attack until after he was already in the physical altercation with one of them. I mean, he was just kind of... I don't know.
Well, he wasn't really in a physical... He was in the complete back, right? So Walter stepped in front of him, and, threw the bowling ball at the one guy. So I think what set him off was probably the altercation in general. So, when the fists started flying or whatever you want, the ears getting bit off, whatever, then, that's what set him off. But that still would have happened even if Walter had his gun. They were the initiator, and I don't think Walter would have pulled his gun before they were making threats.
I'm perfectly calm.
And at the point that he pulled the gun, then there's the altercation going on anyway, and Donnie probably would have just passed out and
what if you
clenched over,
pulled the gun before he threw the bowling ball, and the guys just ran away?
Maybe. But I think the idea of, because he kind of got a little freaked out when Walter pulled out the gun in the bowling alley too. You could tell he had high level of anxiety. In fact, he leaves the scene in the background. You see him leaving the scene, like, I'm getting the fuck out of here.
True.
So it's hard to say, dude. Who knows? Maybe Donnie would have still been with us, but yeah.
It's just one of those great questions.
I'm pretty sure Steve Buscemi is still around anyway.
Yeah, he's pretty dude in real life. If you've ever.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story how he even got into acting. I mean, he was a firefighter in New York.
Yeah, he actually went back during 9/11 and was working as like a volunteer firefighter.
Yeah, I saw that. It's very, very dude thing to do.
Exactly. One of those crazy stories of dude just randomly becomes an actor who's a fireman.
Yeah, well, then he becomes Donnie. But then after he becomes Donnie, he becomes the guy on the HBO series. Was it?
Oh, yeah, Boardwalk Empire.
Yeah, Boardwalk Empire.
Yeah, he becomes Nucky Thompson.
Yeah, Nucky's a little bit different character in that show.
Yeah,
I'd say he was a little even over Walter.
Yeah, he's a little undude in that show. Especially the later seasons when he's got something to prove, so he just shoots everybody.
Yeah, that was a pretty wild series. I watched that one too, but
if anything, it just lends credibility to Steve Buscemi's acting skills. Because if you can go from Donnie to Nucky, you're a pretty damn good actor.
That's pretty versatile.
Yeah,
that's pretty versatile.
That's from 0 to 10 right there.
and the cross-eyed guy in Mr. Deeds.
No, yeah. I thought we were watching Scooby-Doo.
The mailman was looking at me. Or it might have been a squirrel. Anyway, dude. All right. Well, it was good talking to you. And we'll plan it out again. And I think our next conversation should be probably a bit more upbeat.
Yeah.
So hopefully we don't got all this shit going on in the world and brings things down again. But till next time, dude, I'll talk to you later.
All right, man. Have a good one.
All right, dudes, that's going to do it for another edition of the Order the Dude-DudeCast. We're glad to have you around. Tune in next time. Don't forget you can get us on Facebook at facebook.com/orderofthedude. Our website, www.orderofthedude.com. On iTunes, it's Order of the Dude. You can look us up there. And you can also subscribe to the podcast from the website at orderthedude.com/podcast. If you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, just give us an email at guests@orderthedude.com. You can get us on YouTube now too. Just search for Order the Dude-DudeCast. You should be able to find us there. All right, dudes, take her easy, abide, relax, and we'll see you next time.